Welcome to Riverdale After Dark, a podcast about the CW's Riverdale that's celebrating Passover a little bit early this year. I'm Alex. I'll get to that in a second. I'll explain that in a second. I'm Alex.
Wow, what a dark beginning to this podcast. When you walk in darkness for as long as we have, 113 nights, you realize that all of the focus you've had on romance and shipping really doesn't amount to much when Corpse Betty is endgame. Corpsey. I guess we're going with Borps. I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are going to be talking about Riverdale Season 6, Episode 19, Chapter 113, Biblical, a.k.a. the one where basically the entire cast dies.
Everyone dies.
It was a good run. I enjoyed the show. It's going to be weird with only half the characters here, but bully for them. Getting out while the getting's good. You know what I'm talking about?
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's a fun twist. Eventually it's going to be like, who's PP going to end up with? That's where the real shift is.
No.
Now, bit of recap before we get into it, and I'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but the town of Riverdale has been under attack by Percival Pickens.
PP?
There you go. Pete, you always jump in.
Yeah.
I gave you the space.
He's upset.
I'm thrown. Yeah. I just wanted to give.
Just because all of your favorite characters died? Very weird.
Yeah. I'm upset, but also I wanted to give you a shout out, man. I don't normally do this, but never been proud to be part of this podcast, man. When you set up that Twitter thing, that was pretty amazing.
Oh, thanks, Pete. That's very sweet of you to say. I guess we could mention this before the recap. So last night, while the episode was airing live, obviously, as I'm sure most, if not all of you know, the Supreme Court overturned the ruling of Roe v. Wade, which is fucking awful and terrible and a horrifying thing that's really only starting to take effect in a big way, I think, today, Monday, as we're taping it, as a bunch of states in the United States, if you're listening internationally, have completely reversed abortion rights. Abortion is healthcare. Healthcare is a human right. We support that. So not that this is a fun issue, but we decided to try to frame it in a fun way by doing a live tweet fundraiser where we gave different things different dollar amounts, and based on the dollar amounts, if those things happened in the episode, we would give a little bit of money. So like $2 if two characters kiss, $5 if anyone says endgame, $50 if Veronica specifically says endgame. Really?
Wow.
Screw the pooch there.
Hey, come on. Glad to do it, dude.
No, I'm happy to do it. The one that was funniest to me, we did a bunch of them, and you can check them out on our Twitter account. But the one that funniest to me that was, I kind of threw this in there like, yeah, they'll probably mention Baby Anthony once or twice. So $2 for Baby Anthony and $20 if Baby Anthony gets called any name other than Baby Anthony. And beyond like the rest of the episode, there was that one scene where all the characters were like, Baby Anthony, Baby Anthony,
Baby
Anthony, Baby Anthony, Anthony. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna go broke here. And ultimately it ended up, I think it was $209 over the course of the episode. So we donated that. And then totally awesomely, a bunch of Riverdale fans also donated. There was one that matched the amount that was playing along. Wow. A couple of people did $50. Some people did $100. Some people did less or more. You know, this was a way of like gamifying it a little bit, but if you want to donate, the link is still open. It's for the National Network of Abortion Funds. They have this great link. It's secure.actblue.com/donate/support abortion funds. You can also check out the link a bunch of times on our Twitter. And what they do is they split the donations among 92 local organizations, which are the ones that really need the help the most right now.
Yeah, so great. Of all of them to donate, I mean, a lot of them are great, but that one especially, like, really sort of spreads it out in a way that keeps it even in a time when it is very much uneven across the country.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. A little bit of more serious business out of the way first, but thank you everybody who supported that. And even if you didn't support it financially, if you retweeted it just to get the word out there about that link, that is awesome. But back to the recap, Percival Pickens is attacking the town.
Pee-pee.
Pee-pee, there we go. Now we did it right. I got to remember not to pause. Is attacking the town of Riverdale. He swore that things would get downright biblical this episode as we head into Toni and Fangs' wedding. Toni and Fangs are getting married to keep custody of baby Anthony, though, they've been in a relationship for a while as well. We can get into that. Meanwhile, Cheryl has been working on her witch powers with her old flame Heather, who has moved over from Greendale. That becomes very vitally important by the end of the episode, and also has firepower. She is pyrokinetic. Archie is super strong, and he has been specifically fighting against Percival, as Percival has been trying to build his ghost train through the town of Riverdale, which harnesses the power of ghosts to do ... I guess we'll see.
Something bad.
He's also been working very heavily with Tabitha, who has moved Pop's diner to El Royale, the boxing gym, in order to, too complicated to mention, but Tabitha has been really on the side of the workers as well, including Fangs and Moose and a couple of other people. Moose and Kevin have been dating again, while Kevin has been under the thrall of Percival Pickens and sparring with Toni and Fangs about custody of baby Anthony, as we found out last episode, and we could probably get into this for a little bit, but the phrase we should actually use is he is not the biological father of baby Anthony. There's been a lot of, I think, rightful consternation about saying he's not the real father because, he could be the real father. He is the real father of baby Anthony because he's the father, but he's not the biological father. Not to get into it right at the moment too much. But Kevin has certainly been waffling a little bit back and forth between the sides of good and evil. Betty, meanwhile, is in the FBI. She finally put TBK, the trash bag killer, in the back rear view mirror, or so she thought, at least, while she has been dating Archie. And they committed to...
Can you say dating? I would say quote unquote dating.
No. They full on committed to each other in the last episode, which is great. No. While Jughead and Tabitha have been dating, Jughead, meanwhile, has locked himself in the sex bunker because he has been hearing voices from Rivervale among every other voice in the world because he has powers that allow him to hear people's thoughts. That plays out in a big way in this episode. Also, we should mention on the Rivervale front, people have been having visions from Rivervale, the original initial 5-episode event that kicked off the season. Seems like the realities are starting to bleed through a little bit. I know that I am forgetting somebody here. Veronica. Veronica has the power to kill people merely by touching them. She has gotten that mostly under control as she continues to run her casino, the Babylonium, and also work several jobs and sing and dance occasionally. But
a lot.
She has also decided to be alone. She broke up with Reggie, who turned evil and helped out the magic man, Percival Pickens.
And seems to have vanished in general.
Almost entirely. Doesn't even show up at the wedding, I don't think. Wild.
Yeah.
But I think he's been taking a bunch of pictures from really nice locales and posting them on Instagram, so I think everything is all good there. Charles Melton, doing great. He's doing great. He's doing great, man. But anyway, Veronica has been single, and she's been wrestling with that a little bit, which we get into, again, in a big way in this episode. So let's jump into it with all that preamble out of the way. So much stuff to get through, so much stuff to talk through. Where even should we start?
First off, is this a backdoor? Is this show just becoming Sabrina? Like, killing off all the characters and then bringing in another. Is this like a sneak?
I tell you
new
what,
season?
I'm there for it. I'm there for it. Mm-hmm. You know, if Riverdale gets canceled, we can bring back Sabrina and then bring everybody from Riverdale over to Sabrina. It'd be a great plan.
I have some wild news for you. Riverdale was canceled.
Well, I know, but I'm saying when that happens,
By the way, it wasn't canceled. They just decided not to.
They're walking away on top of the mountaintop.
Exactly. They're getting out while the getting's good. That's what I always like to say at least 2 to 3 times over the course of the podcast.
I think it's nice that we didn't have a lot of Jughead in the last episode. They just kind of said he was in the sex bunker and that was it. So it was nice. I felt good that we started with the Jughead voiceover. I felt like, okay, good. We're going to kind of get back to things.
Why don't we start with that? Because the stuff with Jughead certainly ties into the overall episode, particularly potentially at the end, but he is very much on his own track here as he's writing stories. The stories are being stolen. He gets a surprise burger that just kind of shows up for him.
That was just a fun nod to the comics there, where it was just like, geez,
that was in a wild episode. That was the craziest moment.
And I love the VO where he's like,
don't eat it, man.
I mean, how often, like, I get it, though. You're hungry. There's a giant sewer pipe opening up, Super Mario Brothers style. And you're like, it's a snack. It's a little snack.
Yeah, but he was like, this isn't right. I shouldn't. But I loved how he recognized the smell of a Pop's burger and was just like, completely giving over
his one
that
true burger that
weakness.
showed up out of nowhere.
I don't know if I could turn it down. I mean, it's a delicious burger right there.
Yeah, exactly. If there's a garbage plate in front of you anywhere, you'd eat it off of a corpse. But I do think, like, he ate it and it made his stomach upset, but we don't know anything else about it. It's an open-ended mystery, I feel like, right?
But wait. Let me ask you
just a couple of details to throw in there before we start to get too far into it. The other things that are going on, the characters from Rivervale seem to be showing up. We saw La Verona show up.
Ooh, perfect.
Thank you. Nailed that one.
Like chocolate, like a warm chocolate running down my mouth.
Cheryl Blossom in sacrificial attire from the beginning of the season. And the big one, of course, is at the end, is the Rivervale Jughead seems to show up there. Also seems to be the one who's been stealing the stories. Just as Jug dies, and I don't know if this is what you were going to get into, Pete, but my question here was, it seemed like, based on what everybody was thinking, that Jughead probably died from the slaying of the firstborn, but my impression watching it was he died of the burger. He got
the
poisoned
garbage
by the burger.
Yeah.
I think it was the plague.
You think it was the plague?
I mean, it tracks.
Burger poisoning?
It seemed like a burger poison. All right, first off, we need to help me
understand.
Pete
and I are on the same page about the burger poisoning.
Yeah. I just want to help me understand. Mm-hmm. So we got Toni as kind of like the water monster slime person, and in the other Rivervale. But then when we saw her, I really wanted it to kind of like go into Toni's face, but then it transformed into Jughead. But I don't remember in Rivervale Jughead having any connection to the river ghost. So that's why I was a little like, is it Jughead from the other Rivervale being like, I need stories, which makes sense. But the fact that it started with the swamp monster, who I think created the burger out of swamp disgustingness.
Now, here's my take. I feel like you're giving too much credit to the swamp monster here. I think the swamp monster was just the first, like almost like the ghost of Christmas past, present, future visiting. Because I think Jughead arriving there, I don't think Jughead was stealing the stories. I think the other Rivervale characters were stealing the stories. I think Jughead wants him to keep writing. That's where the bottle came from that said keep writing, which I wish someone would give me that bottle.
I do think my guess at this point is it is the other Jughead stealing the stories in order to keep the writing going, like we're saying, and that is why he wants him to keep writing, because other Jughead, Rivervale Jughead, is, like we suspected, running out of stories very quickly. He can't actually keep typing forever. And regular Riverdale Jughead is the one that has the stories continuing forever because he exists in the quote-unquote actual universe, I would say.
But what about this?
La Verona, I think Justin's absolutely right. Like, it is a Dickens-type situation with these three ghosts visiting him. So it makes sense that you'd have the Ghost of Christmas Future Jughead show up just as he dies. That's the skeletal ghost with the scythe and stuff.
Yeah, the scariest one. Mm-hmm. In an episode full of scary things, who thought that just another Jughead would be truly terrifying?
I mean, the cheeseburger was the scariest part. I mean, you know.
Is that the fourth ghost? Is that like the Bob Cratchit? It's the Tiny Tim. He ate Tiny Tim.
He ate Tiny Tim, 100%.
Yeah. Now, I do think Tiny Tim's leg is what it was.
When you're having, wow, that's fucked up. When you're having two Jugheads.
I'm not using it anyway, Mr. Scrooge. Feel free to stack away.
He gave it all, Tiny Tim.
That surprised me. Oh my God, I jumped.
The British accents got you.
Yeah, it got me.
The perfect British.
Yeah, I was like, who the hell? Who's that?
La Verona.
Oh wow, you're actually better at it in the accent. Maybe that's how you should just go into talking. Just become.
I can't. No.
I'm here for my Spanish lessons.
When you get two Jugheads, famously not great writers, being like, hurry up and keep writing. It's really a race to the bottom here. Yeah. They need to get another person in there.
They got to get a third Jughead because eventually our Jughead's going to run out of stories and he's going to run across to Rivervale and be like, give me your stories. And they're just going to start passing the stuff back and forth.
But famously, Jughead can only write something if it's being told to him by another person. Like he's in this episode, he's like, my writing's going great. I hear voices and I just write down what they say. I riff off it. I'm like, that's not writing, dude. That's he's like a court stenographer. And you got two court stenographers trying to write stories to keep a universe going.
Well, I mean, for some people, it might be that might be writing for them. You never know. You don't know what their process is.
You think the writers of Riverdale are being whispered the plots of this show?
That's right.
I want to hear
wake up in the middle of the night with a nightmare of an idea.
They're covered in rats. One rat in their mouth, whispering in their ears.
Yeah. It's a Ratatouille writing situation. But my point is,
dies at the wedding.
How upset would you be if you come from a different universe to see yourself and to check out your writing? You get there just to see that other person die. I mean, the timing of that is just mind-boggling.
Do you think Rivervale Jughead is like, whoa, I thought where I came from was fucked up. What the fuck is going on here?
This is supposed to be the safe universe. They're like, this is like a really dark version of the Riverdale universe. They're like, no, it ain't.
Yeah.
no, it isn't.
If anything, it's like the vacation Riverdale. I want to pop over to Rivervale for some
it's
fun. Like going to an amusement park.
All right, lots of other stuff to talk about in the episode, though. So do we want to jump to the main plot with...
What's the main plot?
Toni and Fangs' wedding.
God.
I'm sorry.
We got not a fan. And I got to say, this was perhaps... we've been talking about Shoney as a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This episode... And how
as
each
maybe
episode...
the only thing.
Each episode keeps pushing Shoney further off. And this one, even further. And I don't say that with pleasure. I say that with Alex as our Shoney representative, voted by the Shoney population to represent on this podcast.
I'll tell you what, watching Cheryl have to marry Toni and Fangs, I had COVID this week. This was worse.
Wow. First off, sorry to hear that. But I also think that Cheryl's sidestep so they could kiss was, that was a master stroke of Cheryl, kind of like, I can't take being this close to this, but also like a polite, nice thing to do. I was really impressed with Cheryl, except for the murder she wanted to do in this episode, which was understandable because a lot of times when people get married, that's the gift they can't put on the registry. You know what I mean? Like that's
one murder.
Yeah. If you wouldn't mind murdering someone for my union.
By the way, I also, let me just say, I never said, but thank you for the wedding gift you got.
Hey, man, I told you we would never have to talk about it again.
My 8th grade bully is fully gone. Thank you.
Now you can live free, man. Enjoy your new life.
I mean, just to talk about this plot overall, so Toni and Fangs are deciding to get married. They've moved up the date. They're going to do it quickly. But over the course of it, Percival very specifically is attacking not just the town with plagues, but Toni and Fangs' wedding with plagues that forces them to pivot a couple of different times. They enlist Veronica as a wedding planner, which she kind of takes to reluctantly. They get Cheryl to officiate over the wedding, which also she's doing reluctantly. Oof. Kevin gives up the custody battle to Toni and Fangs, and so they ask him to perform at the wedding. And here's the thing. You guys got to help me out, because like we were talking about before, I'm a Shoney shipper, dyed in the wool or whatever the expression is.
Yeah.
So this was very hard to watch, but the idea, just trying to think from a logical perspective, and I know they're friends and I know we're watching a TV show, I understand that logically, but emotionally, the idea of Toni and Fangs being like, hey, Toni, hey, my ex-girlfriend, who still clearly is in love with me, officiate my wedding. And Fangs being like, hey, Kevin, my ex-boyfriend, who we just won a custody battle and wrecked his life because of it, and he's bummed out and is with the most evil guy in town, perform at our wedding? That's fucked up.
I mean, I 100% agree. The idea of asking an ex to officiate your wedding is truly, in a show where we have terms like wormwood, locust flying around, harlot of Babylon. That is the craziest thing that happened in this episode by far.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard because when the wedding started, I initially booed because I was like, I'm not on this team. I'm not rooting for this team. But the show worked really hard to give them the vows and the moments to kind of win over the crowd. I just don't know if we can do it. I mean, we're in too deep for our other ships, but they gave it a go. I mean, it was weird that like everybody was kind of like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do a wedding. It seems like we're being attacked by like a really super evil force. And Archie was like, we need to do this. And it was like, okay, I guess we need to do this. But it really seemed like maybe if we focused more on the PP and less on a wedding that maybe half the town doesn't believe in, but it was an interesting point of kind of like, will bring us together.
To your point, Pete, and again, this is me putting all emotion aside and thinking entirely logically, I do think the actors all did a good job. I think the way that they executed it looks good. You're absolutely right in terms of the sequence. They really, really tried very hard to sell everybody on this relationship, the wedding, and in the overall plot of the episode in terms of bringing the cast together in this joyful moment, like just looking at that moment, totally divorced from having watched 6 seasons of the show. I think, yes, visually that worked. But emotionally, it's not satisfying. And it's not satisfying in the way of like, yes, I guess I'm glad to see a more emotional Cheryl, but I would be more satisfied for Cheryl to be like, no, Toni, I love you at this wedding and try to disrupt the wedding. And that to me, even with the incredible emotional growth she's got over the course of the season with Heather and everything else, that to me feels more true to the character personally. But I understand that's also not a move that they wanted to make right now.
Well, and I just think Cheryl seems to have moved on. Tony's clearly moved on. And Cheryl's does as well. Like in the scene with her and Heather,
Watch
and she's
your
like,
goddamn mouth.
Well, and I say that like I'm just trying to bring what the take on the show uncolored by Shoney, loving Shoney. Because I think what the show is telling us is like, hey, and maybe this isn't permanent, but currently even Cheryl has moved on. When she gets the call with Heather and she's like, Toni wants me to officiate a wedding. And Heather's like, that's hard. And she's like, yeah.
She says like it's a very nice thing to do.
100%. And like they are the connection. Over the course of the episode, when Cheryl steps aside after officiating the wedding, she's not upset. She's making way.
Oh my God. Did you see the look on her face when she stepped aside? It was amazing. It was like,
I don't think it was not meant to be a statement. I don't think. I think it was an actor playing the role and like being like, I have feelings here. But the show wasn't like showing us that was an important moment because I think the show's telling us Cheryl and Heather.
Well, I think
Shetler is where the power
the
is.
Camera can't help but capture emotion.
Well, of course.
And that was like a real kind of moment of Cheryl kind of dying a little bit inside along with all of us. But I think it is nice that you can kind of not be emotional about this and just say a little bit of what's going on because it's hard not to see it through these emotions. So,
well, I mean, the other side of it is that 100%. Honestly, I watched that scene and I was like, okay, here we go. Shoney's coming because, and I think the reason for this is that like you're absolutely right. Yes, Cheryl is with Heather. And Toni is clearly married to Fangs, other than the fact that they're both corpses. I think they're both dead at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be tough in terms of the relationship. Well, but I do think
at least they're on the same page, Alex.
Yes. Just looking at Cheryl's development, like we've been talking about, I think the idea here, as we've been talking about for seasons, is that Cheryl was with Toni. They loved each other deeply and fully, but it didn't quite work because of the places that they were in as people. Cheryl then got together with Minerva, who was just another Cheryl, but it was very much the rebound relationship. Here with Heather, she's allowed to grow and change and become a more full, whole person so that she can get back together with Toni.
You're a conspiracy theory. You're a flat earther.
I think I'm right.
Shoney flat earther.
I'll put money on it.
I'll put money on it.
How much money do you want? 500?
Yeah, how much money do I want? Exactly, because that's how this wager's going to go. I mean, I still Shoney's in the bones of this show, and I would be surprised if they don't get back to it. But this show also almost exclusively moves forward at a blistering pace.
Yeah, but
and it very rarely goes backward.
But think about the tears of joy when in the last season, at some point, they get back together and like, maybe for a moment in time.
I'm going to be honest. I'll say something very potentially controversial here. I think as we are entering the last season of Riverdale, the final season of Riverdale was season 7, I think they are probably aware there would be more negative press, more pissed off, more upset people, more frustrated people if Shoney didn't get together by the end than for Bughead or Barchi or Varchi or any of those combinations.
Wow.
Interesting take. Again, perhaps influenced by your personal take. You're saying your issue is the biggest issue that everyone has to deal with in this show?
Yeah, and I think
your
everybody's
issue.
like super on board with it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. I don't want to be painted as an anti-Shoney because I am pro-Shoney. It's just you guys are peepees in the
nuts.
Shoney army. Yeah.
We're over the deep end in it.
You got a couple peepees over here.
Yeah, we're a bunch of Shoney truthers. It's fine.
You're Shoney peepees, yeah.
Easy with that.
So let's move on and talk
Should
about.
we call it Shonenon? We could call it Shonenon.
Oh, that.
Oh my God.
Well, careful,
No, don't do
buddy.
that.
Well, I would like to talk about, it was nice to see Kevin have a good ep. I was very happy for Kevin. I think his like apology and, kind of being like, hey, you know what? I don't want to make things hard for you guys. Like, raise your child and, I'll be here if you need me. I thought this was a great ep for, and also to see Moose and Kevin sit next to each other at the wedding was great. It was really, it was nice to see Kevin get in a better space in the show. It makes me worried what they're going to do to him next. But
the last thing that I'll say about this, just to add on to what you're saying here, Pete, is I do think part of the function of having everybody be settled and moving on from Cheryl to Toni to Fangs to Kevin to Moose to everybody is so you could hit it with, and now everybody's dead at the end. So like you get everybody to this really happy, joyful place, and then you pull the rug out as big as humanly possible. So I do think that was the structure of the episode.
But I did really like how they were having a meeting at the Pops, pop-up Pops. And
Ooh, nice.
And they were like, wait, there's another person here. We're forgetting about Kevin. Maybe he knows things. So I thought that was a nice realization for everybody to be like, hey, power in numbers here. We should be, talking to everybody, which made me excited.
Well, I think they gave up on Kevin, like we've talked about, and it was nice to have him make that gesture that he did about dropping the suit, and then them realize, like, oh, maybe he's got some redemption in him yet, and I think he does. And maybe the show is going to give us that redemptive Kevin arc here, even if it means something horrible is going to happen to him.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know. It definitely feels like, given that they killed off half the cast towards the end of the season, we know they're going to be back next episode. We know they're going to be back for the final battle. I do wonder if we are going to have at least one actual permanent sacrifice death by the end here. Probably not Jughead, because we've been told it is Jughead, but could be Kevin, could be somebody else. I don't know.
That's what the Kevin arc is. He's in the most danger, I think, because he is close to Pee-Pee. Pee-Pee now knows that he betrayed him. So, like, the whole thing...
It was not a smart plan for Betty just to storm in there and tell Pee-Pee everything she knows. That was kind of like, Betty, come on, what are we doing?
So there's two moments where that happens. There's one with Betty where she storms in and it's just like, enough of these plagues already. And Archie does the same thing where... those actually felt very natural to me for both of those characters, because
hard disagree.
Biblical plagues, this is their wit's end. Like, they've been dealing and grappling with these superpowers and the supernatural stuff, but this is really so far beyond them at this point. They do not have any idea how to deal with that.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
You're saying all the other stuff that they were dealing with before was fine, and a couple grasshoppers, frogs, and blood in the water, and you're
lice. Which when I grew up, everyone had lice. So like,
shit.
I guess I was in a plague for a while.
Wait, what?
There's lice flying around in upstate New York. We had lice checks all the time.
What kind of school did you go to, man?
I never had it, but my brother did.
When they had that close up on them shampooing Juniper's head, you were like, I'm home.
Yeah, I mean, truly. I have a daughter named Juniper, so I was really feeling it.
Every morning you wake her up by rubbing your head on her, like, here you go. Take daddy's lice.
And technically, I guess I have a daughter, but I also have all of the lice that are also part of my family. I'm just kidding. We're louse free over here in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Thank you for saying that.
As you say,
I just wanted to mention, I know I joked about this earlier, but with the plagues thing, so all of those plagues are from the story of Passover. So as soon as they got into
Passover
that's what
time.
I was getting to earlier. As soon as right at the top of the episode, they were like frogs, vermin, rivers of blood. I was like, oh, okay, we're doing Passover, so this is going to end with the slaying of the firstborn. And my next thought after that was like, I really wish they had some Jews in Riverdale.
It would have been like, oh, we
They
see
would
what's
have
up.
known.
They would have
what
gotten
was
ahead of that.
happening.
The only, as far as I know, the only Jewish character in Archie comics is Dilton, and he died several seasons back. So he could have warned them, but
He could have.
oh well.
Maybe that's who they're going to bring
Who's
back.
the firstborn here?
We got a classic
You're gonna
Pesach
die.
going on
You're
here,
gonna
guys.
die. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
So anyway,
Wow, I didn't. Well, that's good to know.
yeah,
good to know.
100% for the first minute of the episode, I was like, "This is where it's going." So
Wow.
While we're talking about like just all of the awful things that happened this episode, I want to talk about maybe the worst, the napkin fold that Veronica chose for the wedding. I don't think so.
What are you talking about? Those were beautiful little swan birds. The table napkin swan. What do you would rather have a triangle than a swan?
I mean, it's a little. I'm just saying, it's a little like Borscht Belt cruise ship for a nice high society, high society diner wedding. This is a diner wedding. It's a wedding in a pop-up diner.
she
Like, let's make it
performed
something nice.
Sondheim at the rehearsal dinner. I think.
So,
I think
listen,
we're
Jen,
already very firmly in the Catskills.
All right.
That's that's
First
fair.
off,
I will
I
say
thought
that's
that
fair.
napkin thing was adorbs and a nice touch when everybody was about to die. I mean, if you,
I guess
you
so. I'd be happy
over,
to.
If you're
I'd
like
be happy to
going
plan
past
your wedding, Pete, because it seems like you have low standards.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, if you're dying past the table and the last thing you see is maybe some napkins on your way down, you're gonna be like, "Oh, that's a little goose. Oh, it's adorable." You know,
It's a goose.
You know, it's a nice thought to have as you're kind of passing the table and crashing to the ground to your death.
And then when you get to hell, Satan is like, "Haha, fucker! It was a swan."
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but Veronica's performance really triggered me, and I had a lot of flashbacks to some like horrible improv shows and stuff where people would just be yelling at the audience, like, "You should be laughing. You should all rise and praise me." I was like, "Holy shit, this is a really weird number."
Well, talking about Veronica's storyline all together, I thought it was great. Like, she's like, I'm alone. This is something we've talked about a lot this season, and then she finally is giving it voice. I'm alone, and then she does this like killer number. She's had the most songs in this season by far, which I think is cool.
This was great, by the way. I
loved
thought
it.
this number was so good, so well performed. It is very funny to me that she did a number from Company, Ladies Who Lunch, when there are two numbers that are about weddings that happened in the show that she didn't do. She's like, nah, not important here. Let's not do that. But it worked really well, and all of the moments with the cast were so fun. I loved her sitting on Britta, who seems to be the biggest musical theater fan. Very fun.
Britta, a big showing in today's episode.
Yeah, it was nice to see her get a little shine.
But sorry, I interrupted you, Justin. You were talking about Veronica's stuff.
Yeah, and so that moment, and I feel like everyone's expressing a little bit of concern for her in the middle of that song. They're enjoying it, but they're also like, "Yo, what's up with this lady?" And then Betty offers her the chance to come to the wedding with her ex, which I thought was, sort of like nice, but also like not great. And then the great scene with Tabitha, where she's.
You mentioned that, and that was a really nice moment where, and it helped Veronica. She kind of remembered a little bit of who she was fighting for, her friends, and that was adorable. We thought of the three of them going to a dance together before all this madness occurred. I thought that was a beautiful little moment. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask a quick question? This is definitely a side note, but in that speech, which I also thought was very sweet and a very sweet scene, and I love that they are really doubling down on Betty and Veronica being friends in these last couple of episodes.
Forever.
So nice to see again. But Veronica says, it reminds me of what I'm fighting for in this Wicked Little Town. Wicked Little Town was the Hedwig episode, which included the first Barchi kiss where they were cheating on Jughead and Veronica. Do you think that was a reference at all?
Yeah, probably just a casual like knock on that. I thought that's cool to have that very subtle callback to that.
Yeah.
But so I was saying that last scene with her and Tabitha, where she's like, "Hey, Tabitha, you see the future. What is Endgame?" And I thought this was, my heart was racing when she asked that, and especially the fact that they lingered, she was about, like, we got a couple back before she was about to answer, and she was very much like, I think what she was going to say is like, actually, it's neither, or something else happens, and that's right when everyone started dying.
No way, man. It seemed like she was going to say You get Archie.
No, I don't think so. That's you.
No, I almost think it doesn't matter what she was going to say. Like
100%.
It is not the sort of scene the way they structured it.
Because everybody died?
No, because I think like they might be planning for season 7 now. They might actually have an idea of what the end games are potentially down the road, but that's also 22 episodes down, whatever happens in that season. I do think this is the sort of thing where it's open-ended, and whatever she was going to say could be applicable to this season. Like Justin is saying, like, well, I'll tell you, actually, Archie is about to die right now, and then next episode we're going to be witches. Like, that's the thing that she could say, or versus like, well, actually, you're never going to be Endgame, or well, actually, Betty's never going to be Endgame, or whatever it was. It
seemed like she had like a little mischievous smile of like, I have
she
good
seemed
news
upset
for
to
you.
me.
I have good news for you, but I don't want to spoil things.
I mean, I know why you thought that, Pete. I know.
Yeah, exactly. You guys are both just like, well, you're just like so obvious.
Oh, yeah,
both
you're really above this shit.
That's true. Anyway, Barchi, strong
I was just telling you what I was seeing. That's all I'm saying.
We're suckers, all three of us.
100%.
All three of us.
100%. We should call this Riverdale after Lucy pulls away the football.
Yeah. That's very funny. But I thought this storyline was really cool. I love the shot that led to that Tabitha scene where it cuts through all the couples in love and lands on Veronica alone. Mm-hmm. Very good. I don't know who she could possibly be with right now. I don't know. Like, it's not Reggie, I don't think.
Could be Reggie.
It could be. He wasn't there, but he would have to come out of PP's influence. And
yeah, he would have to come back. I mean, if Kevin could come back, Reg can, It
just makes me feel like there's another story that Veronica's about to be a part of.
Do you think, I'm just going to throw out a wild possibility, just because we're talking about the end of the season here and who potentially could die, do you think maybe Veronica could die? And the reason throw that out there.
I was going to say, that's something what I felt like Tabitha
wouldn't be like, actually, you're going to die. Like, that's
certainly she could be like that. I think also there's something to be said for following the plot of like, Veronica has been supporting Betty and Archie, supporting this relationship. She's alone. If she gets in a position where it's like, it's me or it's Betty and Archie, I think Varchi fans would blow a gasket. Mind you, there's an entire other season, so I think we're going to be okay there. I don't think Veronica is going to be permanently dead. But I do think we could see a situation where Veronica sacrifices herself to save very specifically them and being like, no, you are Endgame. And then lets them go. Yeah. And then everybody in the fan base loses their absolute minds.
Yeah.
Again, I will remind you, if that happens, there are 22 more episodes to go after that finale. So I don't think anything that is said about Endgame in this finale means anything necessarily, but I could see that moment happening.
Wait, so how many apps do we got left?
So we are on episode 18. There's 4 more at this point.
And then 22 after that.
Yes. So 26 hours.
You are Endgame. I am Friendgame. Bye.
Goodbye. She'll be like, "Oh, is that a goose?" And then she'll die.
Oh, yeah. And my last words are seeing a mediocre napkin fold on my way to the ground.
Come on, dude.
So lots of other things happened in the episode, though. I know we're kind of rushing through here, but what else should we talk about? What else should we call out? I know we mentioned it was a good plotline for Kevin. We didn't really talk about Toni and Fangs too much. They mostly seem... Go ahead, Pete.
Was it weird that Heather was like, we should call Sabrina when, I thought it would occur to Cheryl because Cheryl has a Sabrina in as well. You know what I mean?
She doesn't know Sabrina. Abigail Blossom knew Sabrina over in Rivervale. Cheryl doesn't actually know her.
Thank you for clearing that up.
I am interested on that note to see which Sabrina is going to show up. And what I mean by that is like, is it the Sabrina directly from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina? We're going to get follow-up adventures there. Is it the Sabrina that we saw over in Vale? I'm going to say probably not. And also, Heather says she's a great necromancer. Wasn't there a whole thing?
How she hates... Yeah,
and kind of messed it up a little bit, if I remember correctly, from the series. So we'll see how much that plays in.
Yeah, I'm curious what they could do anything really. A couple things, like I loved the scene when our gang storms PP's antique roadshow shop.
Oh my god, the invisible move! Holy
so cool,
shit.
And the powder.
Like, where's that shit kind of been? I mean, if we could do that, like, come on, man.
Yeah, that they played that out like a final battle moment. Obviously, it's not. Like, I think Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa called it on Instagram. This is the Red Wedding episode, almost literally.
That's cool,
bro.
I love that.
Clearly, we were supposed to be set up to win, so we're not getting the end game moment yet, but super, super fun. We should probably talk about Nana Blossom.
Yeah,
we haven't
let's
talked
do
about
it.
that yet.
Fuck.
Holy
my
shit.
God.
Tough app for Nana.
Oh my God. Like, when
Jesus,
she
is
caught
she
fire-
actually dead now? Did Percival actually
Wait,
kill her?
did you see that little ghost come out of her
red?
mouth?
Yeah.
Isn't that the ghost or the soul of the other person that was also living inside her?
So there was nobody. I don't think we're supposed to know exactly what was going on there yet, unless that was part of the spell that he was using to kill the firstborn, potentially. But
That's what I think.
it's certainly.
No, we would have seen everybody do the ghost move. That was like.
No, I think that was the plague itself leaving her and going to everyone else.
Yeah.
It's more by the way I read it.
Really?
But if that's the death of Nana Blossom, what a bummer. So sad.
so
Bursting
sad to
into
see.
flames and then
That was the most stressed out I got the entire episode, including the Tags wedding.
I kept thinking
stressful app for
Cheryl-
AZ
Very
over
stressful.
I
I
kept
love
think-
Nana.
I thought kept thinking Cheryl would like kick in the door because PP was being loud. And I thought like Cheryl's definitely going to hear this. I don't know what part of the house she's in, but
here. She
Cheryl's
was at
got
a
to hear this.
wedding event.
It was. I really wanted Cheryl to save the day and not have her die. It was. When everybody else died, I was like, okay, great. But that was, to see Nana go out like that.
Well, I mean, given we have a necromancer coming in the next episode to bring people back to life, there's certainly a possibility there. Maybe Nana is off the show, but they could also do a thing where Sabrina's like, well, let's do a quick practice spell on your Nana in case it goes wrong.
Oh, great call.
Oh, good
yeah.
call.
So
She's lived
I
a
don't know.
full life,
Yes, it's fine.
full evil life.
So we'll see what happens there, I guess, with her. But man, that scene, the twist there with the pyrokinesis taking down Percival.
Another
When he
great
jumped
scene.
in the chair, I was like, oh, shit.
You
This
knew
is
what
a-
was happening because I didn't pick it up until
I was
After it
like,
was
I
happening.
thought it was really well
well,
stretched.
the only other person in the fucking chair was Nana.
Yeah, and that's how magic works. Oh, where your butt is.
Yep.
Be
Any
careful
other
what you
moments
sit
from
on.
the episode you guys want to call out before we start to wrap up here?
That was a great, really well shot episode, and truly like scary. This is a huge, big
Yeah.
action episode, and I thought it was just really great.
And I'll mention this is actually the last episode that Brian E. Patterson, who we had on the podcast a couple of months ago, I guess at this point, he wrote on the show starting in season 1 all the way through here. And this is the last episode he wrote. I don't know where he's headed next, but great run over the course of 6 episodes, and definitely a very big episode to go out on.
Yeah, indeed. I also just want to quickly say that creepy baby doll was really intense.
Everything's scary.
Yeah.
Every little bit is scary in this show.
Make us a doll that looks exactly like Baby Anthony. Do they have dolls of everybody, just in case?
Oh, my God.
I'm sure it's good to just have that stockpile there.
Who was the MVP this episode, Justin? Who is MVP?
Got to give it up to Ronnie in this episode. Great Veronica episode. She's sort of taking the center spotlight that Jughead used to occupy in this show as like the one who is observing and sort of driving the action. And I'm here for it. Really looking forward to sort of where she ends up at this as the season's closing up.
Pete, what about you? Who's MVP?
I gotta go with Nana. If this is it, we gotta give her a shout out and appreciate everything she's brought to the show. So, she's been a part of a lot of evil plans, and hopefully we'll see her inside the walls someday. But R.I.P. Thanks for what you did
The dream to end up in the walls.
on this show, for real. I mean, that's
I'm going to put that on your tombstone, Pete. See you in the walls someday.
He's in the walls now.
Yeah. Actually, I guess your epitaph actually was that a goose? So I'm going to give it up.
Nice goose.
We didn't talk about it much, but I'm going to actually give it up for Archie this episode. I thought
Great Archie.
the emotional depths that he went to this episode, how strung out he got was great. The scenes of him fixing the railroad in the darkness were really
Beautiful.
intensely
It
filmed.
looked like he built the whole thing himself.
Yeah, so really good stuff for him, which was surprising and fun to see. If you would like to support this podcast, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Riverdale. Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Riverdale Dark on Twitter, Riverdale After on Instagram, Riverdale After Dark on Facebook, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast, and many more. Until next time, we'll see you after dark.
Betty plus corpse is borps. Let's trend it.
Haven't you got me?